to another exciting episode of the What Podcast. You're right, what? Let me bring that octave down a little bit there. We're talking about wellness, healthcare, advocacy, and transparency. Brought to you, you know by now, the FAMU Cops IPH. Shameless plug. We are in our 75th Diamond Jubilee anniversary year.
Woo-hoo!
And yes, excitement is in the air, even with the executive director. What can I say? He's all about the Mary. I know you want to know more, right? But as it relates to FAMU and Mary and the 420 and what it means, well, he's going to give us the 411 on the set today. And I just got to do a shameless shout out to my sister girl, Michelle Wilson, because it's been a long time. Okay, bringing you here. But Executive Director G.P. Mendie, I know you've been talking about Dr. Lord up here already, but thank you for being here with me today and welcome to the What Podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Sheffield, for having me. It's quite a pleasure.
Indeed, and it's a pleasure for us to find out more, because I will just go out with a disclaimer, audience, that when we talk about marijuana, okay, cannabis, and everything that goes along with that, we are also talking responsibility. And so wellness, healthcare, advocacy, transparency. Just want to start off with some basic program understanding. Why is Mary, M-M-E-R-I,
Yes.
and what it stands for important to us here at Florida A&M University, please?
Thanks very much. That's a very interesting question. So Mary stands for, MMERI stands for Medical Marijuana Education and Research Initiative. The program, it's got we have a statewide mandate from the Florida legislature to educate Floridians about medical and unlawful use of marijuana. It was sometime back in 2017, 2018 when the Florida legislature, in her wisdom, decided that marijuana, medical marijuana, will be helpful for a certain number of illnesses. And so it came under what we call the Compassionate Medical Act. And so that has grown a lot from a few medical conditions to a lot more. So you're talking about cancer, HIV, anxiety, ALS, and so a lot of these illnesses that medical cannabis is very helpful in treating patients. So the legislature saw the wisdom in helping Floridians have access to medical care, which is what medical marijuana is. It is medicine. Even though it's not covered by insurance, it is, at least not now, it is medicine.
By insurance. I'll just go ahead and say it. That's right. But
yeah, so it is medicine for a lot of Floridians. And so think about someone going through chemo that has a hard time keeping food down.
I've known people like that.
Medical marijuana is very helpful in helping with their appetite and helping them keep food down. So it makes a difference in the lives of Floridians. You think about a lot of people, like kids having seizure, experiencing seizure. Medical marijuana has been shown by research to be very helpful in controlling and seizures, the seizure occurrences among kids. And so it's been very, very helpful to have this program. Our mandate by Florida law is to educate Floridians about medical and unlawful use of marijuana. So basically, we go around the state of Florida. You name the medium of outreach, we're there. So we tell whoever cares to listen, the Bible says where 2 or 3 are gathered, the good Lord is there. For us, where 2 or 3 Floridians are gathered, Mary's there. So you name it. The church, we're there.
Okay.
Schools, we're there. Brothels, we got people there.
Indeed.
Wherever Floridians are, and people laugh when I say brothels. Oh no, I'm not there. Michelle is not there, but we got people there.
Okay.
So wherever Floridians are, wherever Floridians are gathered, our job is to reach them, and we've been doing that and doing it very well, and that's our mandate.
Indeed, and your enthusiasm is contagious. Let's just say, it's like I just want to go out and spread the word, which, hey, wellness, healthcare, advocacy, and transparency, what we're doing today. And this mindset of 420, I mean, when you see this audience, it may be after 420 in terms of 420 in the AM, PM, or even 420 on your calendar, as in April 20th, as it relates to the whole mindset of this investiture that's going on with our President Johnson here on campus. But what does all of that mean as it relates to the significance and maybe to overcome the taboo associated, if you will, with 420 and persons who say, well, Are they talking about we should just, distribute marijuana, or what's the real 411, please? Sir?
So the 411 on 420, it started several years ago in California, where at 4:20 p.m. a couple of people gathered, to blow off steam.
Okay.
And so that's how we started, and weed was the central, feature of the gathering.
Okay.
And so that's how 420 started. Call it National Cannabis Day. But for today, as it impacts what Mary does and FAMU, we want folks to understand that yes, marijuana has been around for a long time. A lot of people say, "Oh, I did it in the 70s," and we want people to know the marijuana folks did in the 70s is not today's marijuana. Today's marijuana is highly tailored, highly researched, and highly tailored to impact the brain in certain ways. The marijuana of the 70s may have had probably 3% THC in it, also, or less. Today's marijuana, especially some of the marijuana derived from hemp, could be as high as 50-60% THC. And it's out there in smoke shops, corner stores, and in the cartridges that these kids vape. Don't even get me started on that one.
Okay.
And so for us on this 420, it is critical that our administrators here at FAMU, parents, and our kids understand that marijuana is still a substance not to be trifled with. Yes, it is medicine. There's a reason it's not just available to anybody. In Florida, we have it controlled and highly regulated. So if someone feels they need to take medical marijuana, there's a process to go through. A physician, we call them certified physicians because they're certified by the Florida Department of Health, Office of Medical Marijuana Use. They have to be certified to be able to recommend the product. So not every physician is certified to be able to do it. They've got to go through that training. And after that, the physician himself or herself, they have to evaluate the patient and make sure that they meet the need for the medicine.
Okay.
And by Florida law, they follow Florida law to recommend it. And so your doctor has to make a determination that you need this product. It is not for everyone, medical or not. Marijuana is still a substance, like I said, not to be trifled with. Up until about 5 years ago, that was when the research that was available told us that up until to the age of 28, at first we said 25, that the brain was still developing up until the age of 25. So we told people at the time, hey, if you're going to use marijuana, medical marijuana, be mindful, or just street marijuana, be mindful that it impacts brain development. Cannabis, period, impacts brain development. We've done a lot of studies, and we've read a lot of studies. There is no study that we found that doesn't show how negatively cannabis impacts the fetus. So think about a child. Whether the mother uses it or the potential father uses it.
Okay.
So it can travel through the sperm during fertilization, and that kid will be impacted. So you're thinking about, think about this kid could have cardiovascular issues, developmental issues, and the brain, development issues. And so it's compounding. So think about a kid that's already coming into a world that everyone is already struggling, and that kid is at a disadvantage through no fault of theirs, because their parents, mom or dad or both, decided to dabble into using substances before the kid came into this world. It is quite prevalent that we've heard about opioid use and pregnancy and all that. Everyone, we've seen that. We've seen that because people get to see more of that. But folks don't really get to see. People think marijuana is harmless. It is not. There are people that are genetically, they're predisposed to addiction. They don't know that. No one has done a test to tell them, hey, your family has genes that you are predisposed to addiction. It doesn't matter what medication it is. If it's an opioid, you will get addicted to it. If it's marijuana, you will get addicted to it. But people don't know that. And so for people like that, it's important that you talk with your physician and get to know, is this good for me? So even though medical marijuana is the law of the land in Florida, we want people to know it is not for everyone. And get this, the legislature understood the impact and the seriousness of this, such that minors, if we have to give medical marijuana to minors, it takes more than one physician. In other words, if you go to a physician and the physician say, yeah, this child under 18, medical marijuana will be good for him. That physician, by Florida law, is obligated to get the consensus of another physician,
And that makes
a peer.
sense, indeed.
And that peer has to concur that, hey, all right, I see your assessment, you're right. The benefits outweigh the risk,
Gotcha.
and this will be good for this child. So Florida law allows for that, and it's a safety mechanism to protect kids. But what we're seeing is quite troubling. A lot of kids as young as elementary school are vaping. They're vaping substances that they don't even understand. And so you're seeing teens developing popcorn lungs. Their lungs are messed up because of what they're vaping. And these vape come in disguises as pencils, pens, hoodies, parents don't even know.
And how can we stop this? It's going to be the kind of question I'm sure
that is very true.
This is like, because yes, we're data driven. Yes, the research is evolving. Our own interim dean here, Dr. W.H.A.T, he's all about plant-based research as relates to the East Wing and what we do to strive to get information to our audience about what is better or some better considerations that a person can make. Even human clinical trial studies coming to FAMU. We are believing very soon during this 75th year. But when you think about some of the things that you're sharing, a grandparent, I have a grandchild, again, to detect perhaps some things that may be like, what can I do to be proactive without being overbearing?
Correct.
To show the concern and again, to help them escape, so to speak, before they become overwhelmed or overcome by some of the toxicity that is in our environment.
You're very right. And we encourage parents to be there for your kids. So there was a time growing up.
Should I be their friend?
No.
Because you're their parent.
No, you're the parent.
Grandparent.
No, exactly.
Sorry.
No, you're right. You're not their best friend. You're the parent. And you have to be the parent. We have to be the parent. So I'll give you an example.
Please.
So I never really understood it growing up, but it started making sense when I became an adult and had my own kids. I hated it that my folks sent me to boarding school. I'm thankful they did, but at the time I hated it. Boarding school was torture. Not every kid could go to boarding school. They could afford to send me to boarding school.
What a blessing.
It was a blessing. Now I call it a blessing, then I didn't. Okay.
Call it some other things we can't say on the air, but anyway.
So when they would come to visit with me, even before boarding school, when we come back from school, at the end of the day, and we're sitting down at dinner table, they would always ask, are you happy? Not, how are your grades? What happened to school? That conversation will come later. It is, are you happy? I never understood why my folks used to ask that. And so if you're not happy, why are you not happy? And so we learned growing up, happiness is something, it doesn't come from without, it comes from within. And so we were being taught to, you can be happy even in the midst of a storm. You can find your happiness.
Indeed.
It shouldn't come from what do I have and what do I not have. It shouldn't come from the number of likes
Please
I'm getting on a social media
that
or
on the
not.
social media.
it shouldn't come from somebody looked at me wrong,
or even said something to
said
me that made
something,
me feel some kind of way. But a state of
a
mind.
state of mind. Things you can control. There are things you can't, and we cannot control everything. And so, are you happy? It's a loaded question.
It is.
It's like me, I don't have to ask you 5 questions to know who you are. One question, I could ask you one question. Hey, what's your name? You tell me your name. The next thing I ask for your social, and I can get everything else.
True.
You get what I mean?
I do.
So the questions we ask and how we go about it matters a lot. I can tell you this. I'm a dad of 5 kids. The world our kids are growing up in is not the world that I grew up in. When I left school at school. These kids, school follows them home on their devices. The kids are in your house, under your roof, unbeknownst to you, that they're being bullied while they're in your house. And you don't know that. And they're not telling you that someone is bullying them online, and they can see it, but you don't. I don't. And so when we have a way to communicate with our kids, we call it listening to understand. A lot of us as parents, we listen to respond. We say, oh, I know everything. You listen to me. But we forget that kid is our child. If we've done our job right, that kid knows a thing or two. Their experience is different. And if I do not understand where my kids are coming from, how can I help them? If society crumbles when the population feels no one is listening, that's how you'll have uprisings. If you feel I'm not listening to you, it makes you angry. If I feel you're not listening to me, it makes me angry. And so if we're not listening to each other and we're talking over each other, then we're going to have a conflict. But when we learn to listen, to understand each other, we don't have to agree. There's a difference.
To disagree peacefully.
I'm not saying we have to agree, but I'm saying listening to understand each other. As a professor, it doesn't matter how many big words you use or terminologies you use in class. If your students do not understand what you're saying, they're not learning. You're not communicating, which is another thing that my folks did. My mom was very, very religious, very conservative. She said, playing cards or board games will lead to gambling. And so she wouldn't let us do it. And so Dad came up with another way. Okay, they had to come to Jesus. Okay, we still want them to learn strategy.
Yes.
And so they started incentivizing us to learn languages. And so what's the objective of language? Is to communicate. If I'm saying something in Spanish and you do not understand Spanish, I'm not communicating. And now if you're saying something in Creole and I do not understand Creole, we're not. If we're saying something in German or French. And so how best do you communicate or reach the other party in the best way possible that they understand you? And that was language. Different languages have different strategies and mechanisms that we express ourselves, which at the very essence of it is what culture is. At the very basic form of it, culture is the way of life of any given people. And language is a part of that culture. And so when people talk or communicate with each other, we're expressing ourselves. And so how we do it matters a lot. And so with Mary, we bring all that to bear. If I'm talking to someone that doesn't has only a 4th grade, education or high school education or college education, I have to meet them where they are. We meet them where they are, and that's how we're effective. Yes, we know where we want you to be somewhere, but we can't bring you there until we meet you where you are. And I think that's another thing that we're missing. We want people to do what we want them to do without meeting them where they are. And so with Mary, we're privileged that we meet people and we understand, hey, you are where you are, and I want to meet you there. Depending on where we are, there are places we go to I gotta take this suit away, put on shorts and a t-shirt.
Get with the culture.
Get in there, because you wear a suit and tie and they think you're the popo, and you're talking about we.
And we don't want that. Okay?
No. So you
we
gotta
want to be
blend
married in a different kind of way. But no.
So you gotta blend in. So coming back to kids and family, it's important to listen to understand, not listen to respond, and it is hard.
It is, because just the mindset of active listening and being engaged, as I've been actively listening to what you're sharing, the passion obviously is there, and the compassion, which of course with Michelle Wilson, we already had this going on. But as I'm listening also and moving forward, the 420, the 411, the marijuana, as far as how our audience, if you will, may benefit in terms of, they never heard of Mary before.
Yeah.
And so exposure sometimes brings closure, and we want education in terms of information. So outside of this podcast, how can we find out more? Because again, I didn't know Mary in this context until today. What are some ways that we can reach out to find out more, being more engaged and proactive?
So you can find us and follow us on social media. We've got social media handles: Mary Forum Radio, MMERI Forum Radio. Visit us on our website, mary.famu.edu. We've got a ton of resources. And for our students, we want to engage with you more.
You mean students enrolled here at Florida A&M University?
Students here at Florida A&M University, students across the great state of Florida.
Okay.
We want to engage with you more. We want to be able to expose you to this industry. You don't have to touch the weed plant to benefit from the industry.
But what if I am growing my own at home? Let me just throw that at the The devil is a lie.
Exactly.
Okay. Jesus is the Messiah. Y'all know that.
Amen.
No. Cut. No. But again, for the various
kids,
audience members.
Yes. So we tell kids, you work too hard. Your parents have worked too hard for you to come this far.
Tuition paying,
don't throw it away.
Toting, come on, scholars.
Don't throw it away.
Indeed.
You could benefit from the industry without,
very much so.
Dabbling into the plant.
There's a methodology.
And we're glad to work with you there and expose you and give. We've got a network of friends around the state in the industry, to introduce you to. And it will help make your life better too. So you don't have to use the product to get an experience from it.
Gotcha.
Growing up, I was taught that it doesn't have to be your experience. You can learn from other people's experience.
Let me benefit from yours. Why don't
Exactly.
I? Right? Okay, because we are better together. We're kind of coming to the end of this particular podcast. We have to do a part 2, and definitely need to visit online, Mary, and so forth, FAMU Edu. But again, it's a phone number that persons can also call just to kind of get some general information.
So please visit our website. Our phone number, everything is there.
Okay.
MMERI, the FAMU.edu. I'm sure almost everyone has a phone these days. We encourage you to visit our website. You will not be disappointed.
Indeed.
Visit our website. We've got a ton of resources. We really do. And we have resources for everyone. And the beautiful thing about the work we do is if you look there and there's nothing that appeals to you, let us know. We can make it happen. That's the beautiful thing. We're one of a kind program, not just in Florida, but for an entire nation. Other states call us to say, hey, how are you guys doing it? So they can learn how we are doing this. And guess what? This is at FAMU. So our program is forward-facing, outward-facing, and that's why a lot of times it doesn't feel like we're doing a lot on FAMU campus, because we're outward-facing. The entire state of Florida is our playing field. But it is critical. We want kids to learn. We want them to know what's out there. It's interesting, and I'll say this, and I'll let it be. There's simple things that people don't know. Number one, even though you have your medical marijuana card and you have it legally, there are places you should not take it to. You shouldn't take it to federal building like a post office or social security building. Definitely not through TSA. Definitely not across state lines. It quickly becomes a felony. If you take your medical marijuana from Florida and you cross state lines to Alabama, Mississippi, or Georgia, you just cross state lines with a federal contraband. And you could get in trouble real fast. A lot of people don't think about that. The issue of the post office, people don't think about that. Or Social Security office. Little things that matter, we want people to know. And yes, medical marijuana is legal, but your employer could still decide to drug test you and you could lose your job.
Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is powerful.
Exactly.
And wisdom is the principal thing.
Yeah.
We have to get an
True that.
understanding, people.
Exactly.
You heard it right here, executive
With all that
director, if
getting.
you will, the GP, Mendie, from the motherland, the cradle of civilization, Nigeria, all the way across the land. To here, the #1 public HBCU, you know it is FAMU. Got his homeboy, Sam, behind the scenes here. Akintunde, we just say, love you, Sam. And Michelle, girl, Mary to you in terms of being my sister girl. Want to thank you, VP. And I think Dr. Lord, he wants to meet with you again. So to be continued in terms of the research, the teaching, and the community outreach. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and find out more 411 on the 420 of Mary at FAMU. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you, GP Mendie.
Thank you.
Godspeed.
Amen. Thank you.